don't think most NFL players are injury prone simply because there is a rate of less than 3% of NFL games actually being injury free. Once you account for the punters and the kickers and the offensive linemen who see stars but don't say anything to the athletic trainers, that number is probably closer to zero. The point is that everybody gets hurt. Everybody at some point in the NFL is injured. Running backs are really no different. Now, if you're against Christian McCaffrey as a player in fantasy football, you're more so against a running back in general. Every top 12 fantasy wide receiver and every top 12 fantasy running back, this is on a points per game basis, right? So we're not doing cumulative totals. If you look at the top 12 running backs, they miss 0 games, so no time at all, right? They miss 0 games 33% of the time across that span. Wide receivers, top 12 wide receivers, miss 0 games 50% of the time. So the chances of a top 12 running back missing no time at all is obviously lower than it is for wide receivers. But once you look at the amount of times they miss 1 game, wide receivers and running backs are on par. 2 games, wide receivers and running backs are on par. Once you get into missed games of 3 and 4, running backs do take an upward tick because they're more likely to have an MCL sprain, which is 4 to 5 weeks. They're more likely to have an AC sprain, which is 4 to 5 weeks. They're more likely to have a high ankle sprain, 4 to 5 weeks. It's not so much that running backs are injured more often, although these numbers might indicate that. It's that running backs have injuries that lay them out longer, if that makes sense. So I say all of that to keep in mind that if you are not for drafting a running back as your first pick, I could understand that. The chances of them missing more games is higher. Circling back to Christian McCaffrey, he's got legendary running back 1 upside. The chances of Christian McCaffrey outscoring Jonathan Taylor are pretty high. And I think the only reason the CMC slips down to number 2 is because of injury history. Christian McCaffrey had an AC sprain in 2020. He had a high ankle sprain in 2020. Turned around and got a quad strain in 2020. Came back, played in 2021, had the hamstring strain, kind of par for the course. All 3 of them in terms of the hamstring, the AC joint, and the high ankle are all 1, 2, and 3 the most likely injuries, the most common injuries among NFL running backs. So it makes no sense to me to fade Christian McCaffrey for having the most common NFL running back injuries. Does it make him more likely to have a hamstring strain in the future? It does. That's about a 5 to 15% re-injury rate, depending on the data that you're looking at. So the moral of the story is he's not necessarily any more likely to be injured than any other running back, at least to our knowledge. So for you to fade him to the 1.07, that's a long fall. And if you don't like Christian McCaffrey, I think what you're really saying, in my opinion, is you don't like a running back to be your top pick, which is fine. But don't pick individual players and say that the reason you don't like them is for their specific injury.